Start with the first plenary session of Management Sciences. Now we hand over the mic to Bajaj sir for the further proceedings of this session, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in this session, we are going to have three packages. First one will be the expert speak. I have on my left and right four people. They are the experts in their fields. So they will be sharing their opinions. Second part, that will be the panel discussion. Basically, it is not a political discussion, so only in case some particular speaker has talked on a topic and certain gaps are observed, and in case somebody else wants to contribute to that, that will be the only thing. The last part will be the open house, where the delegates will be directing their questions onto a particular speaker. Now, with me, I have today the Professor J.P. Singh is not there. So, Dr. K.C. Vashane is there, who will be sharing with you on the quality of education. Then we have the Dr. Urvashi, she also has not turned up. Then we have the Dr. Jagbir Singh Kadya on my right. He will be talking on the social and economic impact of the non or underemployment of the graduates and the postgraduates. Then we have Dr. Ritika Jain on the extreme right. She'll be talking on the higher education versus the employability in the industry. Then we have Dr. Vachani. He'll be talking on India's status as regard to the patents and the economic returns due to the higher education. Now, as far as I am concerned, I am not a academician. Those of you who are present in the morning session, my views are already known to you people. I'll just take about a minute's time. The present day in the market-driven economy, the customer defines that what exactly is the product specification or the demands for the products are going to be. Same goes with education also. The employer or the market has to define that what exactly is the employer's QRs are going to be, employee's QRs going to be. And on the supply end, educational institutions, our planners, they have to tailor it down so that the employer's requirements are met. With the technological changes coming in, the demands that the QRs are going to change very fast. It's the interest of the students, in the interest of the employees. They have to moderate their qualifications, they have to moderate their skills to meet the market requirement in case they want to be successful in the market. So this is basically I was harping on in the morning when I was talking to you people. And now I'll request Dr. Ritika Jain from Delhi University. She will express her views.
Really thanks to Dr. Sandeep and Dr. Leena for giving me this opportunity to share my views with the learned audience over here and on a very apt theme, India's higher education sector and definitely the employability aspect as well as the quality concerns. We all are living in a world that is changing very fast, and rather I should use the word as a disruptive word. The digital era marked by the digital era, an unprecedented rise of artificial intelligence. Now, if you would see for both these things, what is the shelf life of the jobs, the knowledge that is being acquired? It is extremely short. Now, given these kind of scenario, there is an utmost need on higher education in India to make itself adaptable to the changing requirements and definitely to meet the requirements of the industry per se, the market demand. Now, if I just present you certain facts, in 2016, India produced 2.6 million graduates. These are science, technology, engineering and mathematics, one of the elite courses that are being taught after. But Skill India Report 2019 quoted only 47% of these graduates are actually employable. Now there is actually a huge gap that is existing in the India's higher education sector, which demands a plethora of reforms to be there. The very first thing, the first gap I would say in terms of the curriculum that is there at the present and the industry requirements that are needed. The second gap probably that I would be talking about is the research gap, the quantity and the quality of the research that is there. The third gap in terms of the skill and the technology gap in the faculty. And lastly, the gap in terms of the learning and the industry requirements, the employability aspects of the students. Now let me first talk about the curriculum and the industry requirements. We all know that the kind of curriculum that is being educated, that is being provided in the colleges, universities, at times it is outdated and it is not able to meet the market demand. So what is needed is there should be a kind of an industry inputs in designing this curriculum. Or probably there could be a bridge courses, there could be certain kind of programs where we are able to skill up our students so that they are able to use those skills in able to pursue the job roles that would be given to them. Or probably industry, there should be a tie between the institutes and the industry where there should be certain courses which are being sponsored by the industry, because I know that institutes, universities, they are totally in a fund crunch. So probably the industry should take up these aspects where they should fund up certain courses which is able to bridge up the skill gaps that are existing in the curriculum. Then secondly, I talked about the research gaps. And probably if I say about the research, yes, over the last 5 years, 6 years, there have been an increase in the quantity of research, and definitely thanks to the NAC, NIF ranking and all these, where there is a requirement that we need to have more and more of research. But then there is also a question on the quality of the research. And when I say about the quality, there is a fund paucity that is existing. So if I have to ensure that this fund should be available, again we look up to the industry, because we need research that is practical oriented, that is able to give certain results, that is able to provide certain benefit to the humankind. And definitely for this, what is needed is a kind of research consortium, incubation centers that could be set up where industry and the academia can jointly partner and provide each other the kind of resources that will be needed. Then I said about the technology gap and the skill gap in the faculty. I don't mean to intend that there is a knowledge level that is lacking, but then yes, we as a faculty we need to upgrade, we need to upkeep with the skill requirements which are being posed by the industry, so that we are able to impart those knowledge, those skills to our students as well. So there is a need for train the trainers kind of a mantras to be applied over here. Probably industry think tanks can provide certain trainings to the faculties in the institute so that they are able to provide the kind of requirements that are needed in the industry, in the job markets. And lastly, I said about the gaps which are existing in terms of the learning and the fit between the students' employability in the industry. You all will agree with me that an outdated knowledge being imparted in a classroom can never keep a student hooked. And it's the same case with the employability. So what is needed is again a partnership that should be there between the institutes, the higher education institutes and the industry, where internship, apprenticeship, the continuous learning, the continuous engagement between the industry and the institute should be there. Probably we can provide certain credit transfers to the students so that there is always a curiosity to upscale themselves with respect to the skill requirements that are needed from the industry. Let me just try to end up this entire thing by saying that the kind of education system, the higher education system we had, it was relevant in the industrial era, where once the skill was being imparted to the student, he used to make use of those skills throughout his life by providing that kind of by contributing productively in the industry. But if I talk about today in the digital era, these skills required, new set of skills which are being acquired by the students, they are redundant in the next few days. So we really need to think about a higher education sector need to really revamp itself in order to sustain the kind of changes that we are facing globally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ritika. Now, the question answer will come to that later on. Okay, kindly keep it in mind about the questions what you wish to raise on the particular subject. Next, I would like to request Dr. Kadya, Dr. Jagbeer Singh Kadya from Delhi University. Dr. Jagmeet Singh will be sharing his views on to the social and economic impact on the non-employment or the underemployment graduates, postgraduates, doctors. Okay?
My subject is socio-economic impact on non and underemployment of graduate and postgraduate. Let us be very honest. In the morning session, I heard, why are we here? Why are we studying? Why are we choosing a particular course, path of action? Why are we educating ourselves? That's the first question we have to ask. My simple answer is, we are educating people, students, citizens, to make them, to prepare them for the life. And life is a challenge. It constantly keeps on changing. So what you learn today becomes obsolete tomorrow. And what it becomes obsolete tomorrow, don't try to drag that weight with you. That's the first thing. So I'm focusing on two aspects of here. Where do you get employments? You get employments from the society and the industry. Industry comes within the society. And if I may say so, everything is within us. Similarly, everything is within the society. So your focus is basically on employment. The moment you start chasing a job, it goes away from you. You have to first understand what you want to do with your life, which your schooling should take care fundamentally, because schooling is preparing you for life. If it does so, the job is done. But unfortunately, it is not happening. We are disseminating information, and information is not knowledge. It's not wisdom. And that is where the problem occurs. Socio-economic impact starts from there. Most of the young boys say, we have got ideas, but we don't have capital. I can tell you on this platform, you come with any project, I can arrange finance for that project. But you have to take the responsibility of it. Because this money is coming from the society. It is coming from the economy. And you know something called as opportunity cost of money. If a project one is going to cater to larger section of the people, is much viable than a thing catering to small section of the society. So maximization of wealth is one of the objective of any organization. So once you start thinking from that point, it becomes easy. Now it's a higher side. I'm talking about the lower side now. How does employment issue comes? Or why students are not employable? Two things. It's from my experience in the industry from 15 years in India and abroad. I don't want people with a lot of information. I want people with knowledge and wisdom. I tell them this is a problem. The sales are not happening in this country. That's all. You have to find out how to do it. Don't say that Peter Drucker book says that and that book says that. No. Go see the world. Go to in the society. You have to have that passion. That's the answer for it. Once you have that passion, things follow. Believe me, it's my experience. I'm a living example of that as such. So employment per se, I don't think so there is a problem at all. Anybody here asking for a job of the price which you want as a salary, I can offer you right now. I give a hypothetical example. You ask for a lakh of rupees salary per month, it's available. Milega. Now, answer, listen fully. This is the investment a company is doing in an employee. This is a cost, and every cost has to give return. And this return has to create wealth for the organization. So my simple calculation thumb rule says, if I give you 1 lakh rupees, that is 12 lakh rupees per annum, the company wants at least 60 lakh rupees of revenue from you. Can you do it? Take a job. I can give you right now. So where does things stop? Where does things stop? It stops where? Sir, ऐसे कैसे हो गया? यही तो सोचना है. Passion है तो आपको रास्ता दिखता है. That is where I say socio-economic issues can be catered from that point of view. I think my time is up. Or 2-3 minutes more. So dream big. That's the first thing. Believe in yourself. That's the second thing. Don't worry about the challenges that come. Because the only thing that is constant in this world is change. You were school student yesterday, today you're college student, tomorrow you will be a junior officer in some company. Or if you have a dream and passion, you will be starting with that. And somebody will saying, what stupid guy is doing out here? And 2 years down the line, he says, oh, it's a miracle thing. You know, things of Peter, what that person, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. That idea was very stupid idea kind of a thing. But today, can you live without Facebook? There are a lot of things happening on online. And there are a lot of opportunities here. So create your own employment. Be an employer. Employ people. It's very easy to say, but let me tell you, whatever I'm saying, I've gone through that, I've lived that. So I'm open to meet people and discuss about it. So thank you very much. But it's possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khadia. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rakesh Kumar Yadav to speak on quality of education in the professional, physical, and the social sciences.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Bajaj. First of all, thank you to Technia for inviting me. And I have come from IFTM University, Moradabad. So, as the topic of today's discussion is related with the quality education. So, for me, the quality means that there must be opportunity to all to get the education. Because still, we are having only 26.3 gross enrollment ratio in our country. So for me, the first thing is that education must be provided to all. And how can we ensure that all must have education? Although quality for the students is seeking job, quality for the industry is they must have some skilled students so that they should not invest more in their orientation and induction. That is the meaning for the quality. But how we can ensure the number of students or how can we ensure their enrollment, we should start thinking from this point. And as I can explain here, the model we have in IFTM University, Moradabad, we are the private university. So what we have done, because Moradabad is a regional city only, it is not like Delhi where n number of opportunities are available or it is a metro city. Although it is an export hub for the metal, but still we are having the people, the students who are mostly living in the rural areas or the remote areas. So what our chairman has thought in the beginning that they have started free transportation to all. If you can come to one of the institute, this is the first problem, that students cannot reach to the destination. If you are not coming to a particular institute, like in the morning, Gupta sir has, the chairman of Technia, said that why you are coming to Technia, why you are not choosing any distance learning education. The purpose is that you should come to some institute where you can interact with the professors, with the teachers, with the faculty members. So this is the one point, because I know I belong to one of the village and the bus comes to my village also. I know the mentality of the people living in my village that if the bus is not coming, students are not going for higher education. So this is the first point, that education must be spread to all. And for that, free education. Free transportation. And second, what they have done, that is to just clear this disparity among the students. Some are of different caste, some are from different creed, or some millionaires, or some poor families. So they have given even the free uniform. Now you cannot discriminate. So two things we have started, and now we are having more than 12,000 students in IFTM University. It is just because of this. But it does not mean that we are not providing any other facilities. This is the point, just to call all those underprivileged people, students who can come and who can study, who can have this opportunity to study actually. Because even government says, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, this is also for that purpose. Sabka Vikas, Sabka Saath. How can it be ensured? If we will try to fix somewhere, or if we will try to discriminate, that for that purpose it happened. Now second point I would like to mention, that teaching pedagogy. Ma'am has started with teaching pedagogy. It is also one of the point. We have done one thing in our university, that apart from this curriculum design, because curriculum is almost based on model curriculum of UGC, and at UGC website if we will find, it is outdated of the graduation or BCom. So what we have done, we have taken the help of industry people, because Moradabad is one of the export hubs. So we invite the people from export houses like CL Gupta firm and other firms are there. They used to come and they used to give their inputs what they require when they will come for the employment opportunity. We asked to our all graduates who have passed, those alumni, ki what problems you are facing now in your industry. What you think that what you have been not taught in your classes earlier when you were here. So these are two things which we have adopted, apart from other things, BOS is there and all other things, but we continuously take advice from these industry and our alumni. This is for the teaching pedagogy we are doing. And in learning, I used to tell, dear students, this classroom is nothing but it is a learning laboratory. If you cannot come here in time, you will never reach to your office in time. If you cannot come here in uniform, in nowadays in many multinational companies, they have their code of uniform. So you will not wear that. If you will leave your classes without informing your faculty, if you will leave your school without informing or submitting your application, the same attitude, the one word in the morning, professor from MDI, ASK, and first was the attitude. So this attitude can be developed in your classroom laboratory only. Parents will never tell you that come in time. Parents will never tell you wear this thing only. So this all you can learn from your classroom. And one more thing what we have done, that is cooperation. Because it is one of the point which is always required in the industry. And we have identified two type of students, slow learners and advanced learners. And I quote one example. There is a flower known as sunflower. And it generally takes energy from sun. And what happens when there is no sun in the sky on those gloomy days? So all these sunflowers try to convert their necks towards each other. And they take energy from each other on that day when there is no sun in the sky. In the same way, all the students, they develop this capacity in themselves, that is they are coordinating with each other, they are helping. Slow learners get help from the advanced learners become the capability of leadership, and slow learners try to become at the level of advanced learners. So this is another pedagogy method we have adopted, and it is also getting successful. I think I am getting a little, just 1 minute. And one more point is there, that attendance is one of the question, always. So for attendance, like when Modi ji came into power in 2014, he started Swachhata Abhiyan. Everybody thought, what is new in it? We all knows, but that was the need. So the same thing, like why I'm quoting this? Because in higher education, attendance is one of the problem, because we have given the all sort of liberty to students and to faculty members also to some extent. What we have done? We have thought that why students are attending classes up to 12th? Why they are attending classes up to 10th regularly? What is there? So we have started monitoring their attendance on daily basis and weekly basis, and conducted PTM. PTM for higher education also. So that students' parents can also come into picture. Because nowadays we are living in the era when from morning to evening, even most of the students cannot speak to their parents. They are so busy. Parents are having their businesses. Parents are busy in their jobs. So this PTM facility we have started, it may be surprising for you all that at higher education I am quoting it, but we have started and we are getting good results also. Parents are having a watch on their kids also. So I would conclude that if we can start adopting into adverse conditions, because we are having disruptive technologies, and if we can start to keep ourselves with our basics clear in mind, then we can get even the jobs also.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Now we have Dr. Varshney with us. He'll be deliberating basically on deliverables from higher education in the form of the patents, economic returns, is the higher education really proving useful to the industry or to the nation? That's what Dr. Vaishnav is going to deliver on.
Thank you, Dr. Bajaj. I am also thankful to Technia, who provided me a platform to speak on quality enhancement. First of all, I have to say I am not a good speaker. But I have to share my views with you. Nowadays, quality is a term very much used everywhere. Everyone say our product is very good in terms of quality. So the measures for quality requires to qualify the international level by some accreditation board, etc. In education, you have to go for NAAC. So I have to say, for example, our laboratory, this is Forensic Science Laboratory adjacent to Technia, is accredited by National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories as per standards of ISO IEC 17025. So we have certain quality requirements. For examples, we have standard operating procedures. We have validated methods for testing. We do the calibration of equipments and instruments. And we are also participating with PT program, proficiency testing program with other laboratories. And we have certain certified reference materials for correct results. We are also doing replicate testing. So these are the measures, our quality assurance measures in our laboratory. So we do all these methods to improve our quality of the results, testing results. So similarly in education, there is requirement of some quality enhancement. So the topic given to me is patents and economic returns due to higher education. So this is the topic. Patents is also a tool for quality enhancement. So I will tell you how. Number one, it improves your ranking. If the higher educational institutions are doing and registering their patents of their researches, so their ranking is improved. Establish an innovation ecosystem and incubate knowledge-based startups. You can incubate knowledge-based startup on the basis of patents, earn additional revenues, and you can enhance your research activities also by means of patents. So as Dr. Ritika said, this for revamping of this system needs funds, needs money. So there is a patents is a solution for higher educational institutions. They go for patents and it will give you the in return the money. So it can use for your research purposes also, further research. So I have to say, and I come to know this NAAC awards 24 points which have innovation ecosystem. Means if you go for patents and the NAAC will award you 24 points, it will improve your ranking. I came to know from Dr. Yadav, there are certain universities who have this patents fringe cell in their universities. So every universities, every higher educational institution have patents right cell also to encourage their students to register the patents. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vaishnav. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to the module 2 of this particular panel discussion. Now, in this module 2, what we are going to do is each of the panelists, in case he is interested, he can make certain other contribution to what all the viewpoint expressed by the other three. So I'll request Dr. Ritika first, in case she wants to contribute onto the expressions made by the other three members on the dais.
Thank you, Dr. Bajaj. Yes, definitely. I would like to contribute to what Dr. J.S. Kadian has said about the social and the economic change aspects of the higher education. And, at times we can't actually burden the private institutes because there's always a funding scarcity that you also take care of the social aspects. So somehow there is a need for strong funding from the government. At the present, if we see, as compared to the developed countries, where around 5% is being devoted to the higher education, 5% of the GDP, the same is not the scenario in India. Merely around 1.5% has been devoted, and which is expected to increase to another figure of 1.9% in the future. But this much funding by a government is not self-sustaining for a higher education, and especially if I talk about the private sector. Most of these funds are again going to where the government sector, the government institutes. So again, to just say that higher education should take care of itself in the private sector, and as well it should also take care of the socio-economic being of the society, that is something very difficult for the private institutes. So there has to be certain models, there has to be certain kind of a thinking that should go behind how we can enhance this kind of a social and economic changes that we expect from the higher education in the private sector as we expect from the government sector.
Thank you, Dr. Ritika. Now I'll request Dr. Kadian, in case he wishes to make any comments or the contribution to the other members, please.
Now I would like to talk about what Ritika had mentioned. Maybe I may contradict a little bit, but this is for the interest of the students. Now I would like to have your attention to 100% capacity for a few minutes, please. We talk about the government spending on schooling, on health, environment, everything. Government looking for citizens, employability, and so on and so forth. I differ. Government job is to govern, give a basic infrastructure, that's all. Whosoever is running on that platform has to self-develop, self-employ, self-engage, and move on. Now we are having, in society we have corporates as well. Corporates are making a lot of money from the society. So they have to give it back to the society. So India is the only country in the world which has come with a statute, Companies Act 2013, Section 135, which talks about corporate social responsibility. And here's an opportunity also for all of you, students per se. A company with 1,000 crore turnover, with 500 crores net worth and 5 crore annual profit has to spend 2% of average 3 years profit. So that constitutes around 40,000 crores in India. Whereas the social spending budget of Government of India is more than 120 crores. So government is doing its part. I am saying it has been stretched too much. Now let us focus on the private part of it. And this is where the opportunity comes, because I have seen so many companies who are searching for young talent who would like to work in social sector. Company wants to send, let us say one company, Indian Oil Corporation, want to spend 2 crores in X area of Delhi pertaining to school education. Someone of you can volunteer and start doing it. It's an employment, you are contributing to the society, you are contributing to the economy, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things coming up. One last aspect I'll touch and then I'll stop here. It's about quality. I'm very sorry to say we have never understood what quality is. It is situational, contextual. If anything that suits me is quality. If anything that is happening around the world, that is quality. It's not. Quality is something what has to be genuinely present in a product or service. What has to be genuinely present, which also means when I'm teaching to my class, I'm teaching a topic given in the syllabus. I'm teaching a content in a unit, and so on and so forth. All right? There are some selected books, some reference book. If I am able to connect that with my society, my culture, my student, and my audience, that is what I mean quality. Not that what text has been given. You know that this is what I say information dissemination. And the other thing which I mentioned in the earlier talk was knowledge and wisdom. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kadim. Next, Dr. Yadav, you have anything to contribute on that?
Now I have got another chance to say something. Sir has rightly said about the quality, that quality must have certain benchmark, then only we can do. So you are right, sir. And one thing I would like to tell that as I am already in private university, so we do not receive any sort of fund. So that is not a matter of debate for me. That can be done.
I can discuss one to
Ah.
one.
So we do not receive any sort of fund from the university, but what we do, as you have said, that CSR is one of the facility. So even we have this, that our chancellor, who is also one of the entrepreneur, so he has done everything as a charity, that is for the well-being of the society. So what he is doing, he is having only the salary part. He is also on the salary of the university. He does not charge anything that is like profit. So he is not making profit, he is just having the salary of chancellor. So what we can do, what I have already discussed, that we are able to provide salary to the faculties, even the infrastructure to the students by the revenue generated from the fees and other modes. No other things we are having. So thank you, sir.
Dr. Vashni, anything from?
Definitely, the quality requires some funds. But if there is a will, there is a way, I have to say. Because quality is a term. If at the opening session, the discussion was that the terms were used like that, innovative, or the term was used creative. So one of the stakeholder of this education system is the learners, students. So if the students are creative, they have great energy in their, they have great energies. So they can use for this quality enhancement of their institution also. Similarly, the other stakeholder is teachers. Teachers can also start to improve their quality of education. There are certain means, there are certain requirements for this purpose. So definitely it needs fund, but they can generate within themselves also. Thank you.
The panel discussion is going on the quality enhancements and employability. And just now I have received that most of the students of BCA joined the camp over here to understand the next session of this quality program conference. When we talk of quality, and since morning we've been talking of quality. Quality is a relative term. Quality with respect to what? Big question mark. When we talk of quality education, it's one part. Our conduct will be changed after we become educated. Before education and after education, your conduct changes. Similarly, when we are talking of the professional education, after professional education and before professional education has been provided to you or after education provided to you, the things changes, your outlook changes. Similarly, your temperament and your output also. If our satisfaction level is, say for example, I'm satisfied with 75%. Somebody said I'm satisfied with 65%. Somebody said I'm satisfied with 40%. There are students over here. How much marks you will get in the examination will feel satisfied? Can you raise your hands and say, this is my percentage? 75% distinction is okay? How many say yes? Or 60% is okay? Just raise your hands. First division is okay. Just raise your hands. First division okay? Or passing marks is okay? First division okay. Okay. Raise your hand if first division is okay. Okay. Second, how many is satisfied with 75% distinction? Just raise your hands. And how many is expecting that 90% merit? Okay. And anybody who's trying for 100%? One. Please. Now I'm going to make a difference for you. If I say I'm satisfied with 99.99%, that means 0.1% error. And that claims to be in IT fraternity with a syntax error or some calculation error. That means we are expecting 7 air crash at IGI airport every week. The time of operations we are planning over here, 0.01% error. Air traffic controller that we are expecting out of 100 flights, there's going to be 1 air crash. Clear? So when we talk of quality deliverance, think of always 100%, not even 1% error as a quality persons and a quality systems. Quality means you have to surpass the expectations of the consumers. Surpass the expectation of consumer. And now we are not moving with satisfaction, we are going with delight. Delight connotations. We have to surpass the expectation of consumers and we have to delight the consumers. Delight the consumers. We have to surpass their expectation and that can only be possible. You have to give 100, you have to give 110%. Wherever you are working, in whichever area you are in, whatever dimension has been given to you, don't settle less than 100% as far as your connotation and giving to the nation and working is concerned. This is the quality. For me, that's the quality. If we expect 99.99%, 1,50,000 drop babies at birth, this is a giant. Or 50,000 mistaken surgeries. ये किडनी ठीक करनी थी, वो किडनी निकाल दी. ठीक है? गलती हो गई. गॉस पीस रह गया. Gloves रह गया. कैंची रह गई. This is 0.1% error. So when we talk of quality, whatever is imparted by you from the teacher to you and how much skill set you develop, you have to enhance that skill set. Not be living around over there. Sir ने मेरे को 10 सिखाया, 10 पे रुक गया. नहीं. आपको 10 का 20 बनाना है. Every time when we pass on our connotations to the next generation is better. It's going to add on with that something new to that system and it will be always enhancement to the quality. This is what we are going to pass on our baton to next generation as a baton and so on. So every time we pass on the baton to next generation, it is evolved because you are going to give your own flavor and color to the system. And we best see that whatever color and flavor you give, that has got your own mindset, your wisdom. We bank on you. We are proud of you. And you can do miracles for the country. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on to the module 3 now. That's the open house, where you know that you can put your question to any of the panelists here. Rathod sir, you will stay here? You will stick around? They can ask the question to you also? Okay. So all the 5 panelists, okay, you can include me also in case you want. So kindly, when you are asking a question, firstly tell your name, then the panelist for whom the question is, then please speak out the question. And when you are asking the question, please speak a bit slowly so that it gets registered also what exactly you wish to know about a particular issue. Some volunteers, the mics can be circulated, please. Shall we start? Somebody wants to ask a question? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Shubham Bhatnagar, and my question is to Dr. Ritika, ma'am. My question is, how can we impart the skill that are needed by the corporates to the students?
Okay,
Thank you, Shubham, for this question. I have said repeatedly that there has to be a need of linkages between the institutes, higher educational institutes, and the industry. So probably there are, in foreign universities, if you would see, there are partnership universities. There is sharing university. So there are certain industries which are continuously engaged with certain institutes, and they ensure that whatever graduates, postgraduates which are coming out from the university, they have the latest of the skills that are needed from them. So probably such kind of a things can be there. Further, if you would just see, there are lots of e-learning modules which are now available, which are able to impart, the latest of the knowledge to the students. Probably YouTube is another thing you all are engaged in, where you can upskill yourself to the latest trend that are needed. So these are certain scenarios which can be always taken care of.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. My question is to Dr. Yadav, sir. Sir, what is the best way to diversify the skill set in the classroom? Dr. Yadav. Yeah.
Can you speak on the question again?
May I know your name?
Sir, my name is Deepmala Chauhan from MBA.
Pardon?
My name is Deepmala Chauhan from...
Deepmala.
Yes.
Hello. Deepmala, your question is how can you diversify your skills in the classroom?
In the classroom, yeah.
So, sit down. One thing what we all can do as a student, that there is a term which we used to impart with the students, experiential learning. Because nowadays, everybody is demanding the skills in the students. And when you are standing in the kitchen with your mom, you know how to cook food. Only one step by watching and observing. And then second, you try at your own how to cook the food in the kitchen. So what we have done in our university, that we have like Department of Hotel Management. So we send the students to one of the 5-star hotel in Muradabad, Om Sons. We have the agriculture department and we have adopted 5 villages around us, and we send our students to the farms of that particular area so that they can learn how to cultivate the crops and what will happen, where it will be stored. Because we are listening a lot of things about the farmers, but how can you understand? So only listening the lectures in the classrooms by PPTs or anything will not serve your purpose. Then you will only mug up and you will pass your examinations. But what will be required, that is go and learn experiential learning. There are different ways also, like this conference Technia has performed for you. So here again you are learning. If the students are not sitting here, it can be done. If the organizers would have asked you, after the conference you all are supposed to give your presentations in the classrooms, that what you have learned, then it is your duty to sit down and to learn and to note down and then try to implement it in your own life. Without implementation, you are not going to learn anything. This is my take. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Who's next?
My
Yes, ma'am.
question is to Dr. Jagbeer. Sir, do willingness of top management affect the proper allocation of resources and funds?
Please repeat the question.
Uh,
Please.
Do willingness of top management affect the proper allocation of fund and resources?
You talk about willingness of the top management. Now let me just give you a boardroom picture. There are a lot of stakeholders of the company. One of them is the investor. What does he want? He wants good dividend. Second are banks. What does bank want? Servicing of their loans. Third is government. What does government want? Maximum taxes, fair taxes. Fourth is your customer, and so on and so forth. I'll stop at customer. Customer wants a product which is economical and imbibed with the perceived quality in the product as such. So resource allocation is always a tough thing happening. So I'll say that in crisis you have to reallocate depending on the mindset of the board, the vision of the board. That is what we teach in strategic management of a business. So resources are always scarce. If you ask Mukesh Ambani, are you happy with the wealth? He says, no. If I have this much of more wealth, I can do this much of more business. So allocation of resources is purely on the person who is running the company, and the company is run by the board. So that collective wisdom is what applies. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, sir. Thank you so much.
A very good afternoon to the dignitaries on the panel. My question is to you that we are just spending 0.61%, 6% GDP to the research and development, while the United States of America and Israel is spending
Your question is for whom, please?
to the Jagbir, sir.
Okay.
So I request you to please tell me slowly your question, so let me understand.
Okay, okay. My name is Murshid. I'm a research scholar in the Department of Tourism, Jamia Millia Islami.
Fine.
So my question was that we are just spending 0.6% GDP to the research and development, while the developed country like United States, Israel, is spending more than 3% of its GDP. So without any, just environment, infrastructure, any incentives to the scholars, how we can talk about the good quality education, good research? How it is possible, sir? Just I want to understand from you.
Fine, fine. Okay. Now, if you have taken a very, very pertinent question. Now, answer your own self what I'm telling you. Let us be very honest about it. If a country is spending, let us say, 15% of their GDP on education, I have no issues because they have that much of resources with them, number one. They have the determination to do. Their priorities are. Now, next question is, I am talking a little bit sarcastic here. Let us be very honest. How much of your resources are actually applicable or usable? That's the question. नहीं है. A person is doing online business के ऊपर marketing किया है उसने. He has done a PhD on that, let us say. With due regard and respect to all profession, all topics. But my suggestion is that when you talk about resources, please understand, where do we put resources? We put resources where it is benefiting something or it is making it grow. Agree? So when maybe the industry, the government is not getting that responsiveness from those researchers, therefore our researchers are weak. Secondly, we publish so many papers. How many of our papers are into those class of quality journals? Second. So, there's a requirement of publishing n number of paper. People are rushing towards publishing the paper, irrespective of quality and utility of it. So, I'll give an example of your European university. There the research is done, okay? And this research is sold to the industry. And maybe new industry works on that. You get my point? हमारे ऐसे कितने researchers हैं जो हम industry को sell कर सकते हैं? I give example to you. New virus has come, coronavirus. Now industry wants researchers working in this kind of a profession, epidemic medicines, let us say, for a while. These researchers are required here very seriously. It's not coming, sir. Your researches are in the laboratories. We're repeating things again and again and again and again. All right? So that's where the problem is. Otherwise, I've seen these models in many British universities where most of these researchers or professors in X, Y, and Z stream, they are breaking their head and mind. And they're fighting and debating on issues and trying to create a model. And that model is sold at a very high price to an industry, and where a new section of industry emerge. That is what is research. If you do this, believe me, we have got tremendous opportunity, I'm telling you. Tremendous mind-boggling opportunities. I hope I answered your question, or still? So it's a reality check we have to do.
In case you see the word over, I'm just contributing to part of what he has told you. The globally, especially in the developed economies, most of the research labs are self-sustaining, okay, and run by the private organizations also. In the morning, what I was talking about, the patents what are coming out of our country. This is what the difference is. Those countries, in case they are coming out with the more and more patents, that brings the money to them, which is further augmented into the research labs. He talked about the coronavirus. You take it from me, in case the Americans they are able to come out with some solution to that. It's going to be a billions and billions of dollars earning for them because the same medicine will be sold throughout the world by those people. Okay, at the moment everybody is trying to find out the solution. In case they are, whether the Swiss people or whether the Americans, they find the solution to it, they are going to make a hell of a lot of money out of this. That's the business. That's how the other countries work. Okay, anybody else please? Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Hello everyone. This is Monica Barnwal. I'm a research scholar from Jamia Millia Islamia University. My question is for Dr. Yadav. Sir, I've been going through a report. This is ASH report, All India Surveys on Higher Education. It says one of the key points is there is an enrollment of around 79.8% in the undergraduate level of students, and there is a less than 0.5% enrollment of students in PhD level. So what we can conclude that our system of higher education is going down. Students are very discouraged about taking higher education in India. What we can conclude about this?
Number shows what you are talking about.
Yeah.
That you can conclude that higher education is not coming up to mark, or what you have said that research is not happening. The same question he has asked regarding the fund generation. But as sir has said, that first there must be some self-spark. If we are not willing to enroll ourselves, either government can increase. Government has advertised a lot on Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Then what is the meaning? Simply coming to the classrooms for midday meal? Or then again coming to the classroom just for the sake of attendance? Or again coming for the class just for the sake of degrees? Because research should be society oriented. What type of research we are conducting, is it going to help somewhere? And this is the reason, if it is not going to help somewhere, if it is not providing any result, then others are also not being motivated. This is the point. Because we try to imitate others. Like if I am in my family, I have seen that my father has done something for me, or something which is really an example, I will try to do it. My son will try to do it. In the same way, if I am an example in the classroom, the students will try to do. Research is something different. We are having research somewhere in the fields of medical, in the fields of somewhere in biotechnologies, but in these humanities or in social sciences, we are not providing the results up to the benefit of the society. This is the one reason, that is why people are not coming to this. It is like you can say that it is at that level where there is no opportunity of the result, so we are not moving in that area. Like the company who are producing some product, if it is already been matured, so nobody is going there. In the same way, students are not enrolling for the research.
Sir, can I add?
Yes, please, sir.
I'll just add to what sir has told just now. Mind my words very carefully. Mind my words very carefully. I'm just adding on to what sir said. See, whatever problems we see in society are the opportunities. The moment we start searching solutions to that, that is what the research is required. This is a precise place where the research is required. Are we venturing into those unknown territories and doing research? If it is yes, believe me, there is no dearth of funding. Believe me. That's the thing.
We need to see these figures that you're pointing out as a complete picture. When I say about Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, I intend to provide primary education to each and every child. But as you grow up, you would always see that there is going to be a reduction in the numbers, right? There are going to be certain, flow out of this entire education system, because there are other environmental parameters which are acting over there. So probably I can't expect 100% of the graduates who are enrolled to go for the PhD. It is also the orientation that has to be seen, the attitude of a person who is doing graduate, whether he has to pursue further the postgraduate, because it is also circumstantial. We have to see whether the family is able to support his education further or not, or probably he or she is able to get that kind of a support on his own or not, right? So again, there is going to be a reduction in the number of figures if we see for the PhD enrollments, if you are looking at that as a standalone thing to be compared with how many of the graduates are being enrolled.
Ladies and gentlemen, now, because of the time constraint, I can accommodate max other 2 questions now. Maximum 2 questions now, please, because we'll have to wind it up this particular session. Anybody else, please?
Sir, my question is for you.
For me?
Doctor. Yes. You have earlier said in your speech that higher education, if one should not go for a higher education unless it is very profitable, why we are pursuing postgraduate level, why we are not going for some professional courses, which is also a part of higher education. I have one question, that is, what's the solution of generating interest among students to go for a higher education? Because we are all discussing about the lack of this, lack of funding, or maybe some encouragement is needed for the students. But how can we, improve the sense of belonging, that we should get some higher education? The credibility of higher education should be inculcated among the students, because higher education would, it will lead to more innovation, more innovative thinking power, more, critical thinking, more strategic building in the mind of people.
Okay. In case I take you back to what I said in the morning. Now, I never said that the higher education is not to be promoted. Okay. I said that everybody starts going for the post-graduation. Is it going to give us any useful results? You take the case of a village boy who's in the farming. The family is in the farming. Okay. He does the graduation. All right. After graduation, in case, he's an average student. Now, in case he is not able to hook up a proper job, that means that he's negated from this side of the society. He can't go back to the village because he feels, I'm a graduate, I can't do the farming now. The menial work, I can't do it. So he doesn't go in for the farming also. So he's a wasted resource, isn't it? So what I have suggested was that the bulk of the population, up to the 10th standard, we should give them the good education. In fact, what is happening is that our legislatures and the executives, they are making a confusion between the literacy and the education. In the name of the literacy, you only got to make the people aware that they can manage their affairs comfortably, isn't it? That much of the awakening should be there. But when it comes to the education, it's a very, very broad spectrum thing. I said that you throttle it down so that bulk of the people, in case the employment is available only at that level, and their capability also is that. So let them go into that. Out of that, the brighter people, let them get the entry into the colleges. Isn't it? See, you all are aware about the normal curve. Pareto, or the normal curve, what we talk about, is of course, the low 5% of the parasites in the society, so you don't bother about them. It's only that 10% of the population who's on the extreme right, who are going to give you the dividends. We are 130 crore people here. 10% of that, in case those many people are engaged into the research work or maybe the higher education, ultimately how many people you find that are in the executive cadre and maybe the higher level of the society. Maybe we all come into that 1%, 1.5% or 2% of that category. Bulk of the population, in case you think from that platform, they are still living on the other side, which I was referring to in the morning. No? Satisfied or not yet? Should I explain something more?
Sir,
Okay.
that's all right.
125 crore population of India. Big population, right? If you compare with any developed nation like US and UK, the population of the highest education over there in that country is just 22%, right? 22, 1. If you go for Singapore, 15, 16%. In India, it's not even 8%. We are only having 2%, not even 2%, with all the private universities taken into picture, into consideration. We have not been able to reach up to 2% mark. Now, after online education system, we are hovering around 3 to 4% or something like that. But then again, question comes of employability. What kind of employer? Whether the people which were graduating and passing out of quality or not. Big question mark. The now thing is there, we are making the opportunities available to the student. At least there are education system and they are educating. Slowly and gradually we can make it quality oriented. Earlier it's not so. AICT came into picture in 87. Prior to that there was no technical education like system. It is only after 1987 the AICT came into existence and there is a MBA and MCA culture has been started over here in India. Prior to that there was no, only government education system was there. So when we talk of big elephant, India is a very big elephant to move with. Anything over here from one place to another place, it takes lots of crores of rupees. So when we talk of higher education, even to reach up to 5%, you require double the infrastructure immediately whatever we are having over here. And then to talk of quality. And then to talk of deliverance. So it's big. It's a problem, but it's opportunities also. And you are the selected few sitting over here, the 2%. Difference between have and have nots. So my submission to you is that you can do miracles as far as research is concerned. Teaching and research is two sides of the same coin. If you know teaching without research, and there are research without teaching. So both are interdependent. If you're doing teaching, no research, futile exercise. If you're doing all research, no teaching, again a futile exercise. So it's a same coin with two sides. So we have to take this paradigm into our calculation, and then only we can be able to reach up to right dividend as far as quality work is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope most of the mist is cleared in your minds. The time is the constraint, otherwise we might have continued, and Dr. Anup is waiting for pretty long. So I think we are constrained to wind up this session now. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.